How's it going, everyone? Today we got a first impressions video for you on the new FN 509 full-size MRD. And just like the last one, we're going to go into what it is, why I bought it, what it comes with, shooting impressions, and then what my plans are with it, I guess. So what it is, it's the FN 509 full-size with the MRD optic plate system slide cut, however you want to refer to it, from FN. And why I got it. So I have been running, well, let's say 6 years ago, I essentially went all in on the CZP-10 family of handguns to carry, nightstand, full-size gun, and then as a competition gun as well. And essentially I had shot out the full-size one, so I started looking for a new full-size gun for me. You'll have to bear with me for this whole story. It's a little bit long and complicated as to why I bought this, but that's why we're here. So having kind of put the P10F in a state of repair I wasn't necessarily happy with, I tried a P320, and I had rented one back when they first came out, and I hated it. Well, I rented one again after running the P10 for so long, and I really liked it, and I actually ended up landing on this as opposed to I think I was trying, at the time, it was between this and an M&P, and I ended up going with this, but the M&Ps are great. It's just a lefty thing. So yeah, I've been running this for probably the last 2-3 years or so, and then more and more I see these reports of SIGs doing SIG things. So while I don't necessarily believe there's like a mechanical reason the bad juju with SIGs keeps happening, it doesn't make me want to dive headfirst into that entire family and then buy 2 additional copies of this gun as much as I would like to, let's say. So then it got me doing what I think all of us do in our spare time, and that is ponder the gat. And I pondered for a long time, and I couldn't quite think of anything that I wanted to switch to. So I got thinking way back in my history of firearms ownership, let's say, and I went and shot to practice irons the first handgun I ever bought, which is the FNS9. And go ahead and make fun of me in the comments. I committed a lot of cardinal sins with gun ownership with this, but it's a fantastic gun. I carried it. I stuck it in the nightstand. I did everything with this. And yeah, so while I was pondering the gat, I thought to myself, I really like this FNS. Maybe I'll look into the 509 because it's always kind of been around, but I kept kind of talking myself out of it, At first, they didn't have the full-size version, and I'm not a big fan of the compact slide on the full-size frame. I want one or the other. And then I was like, well, I have the FNS, so why bother getting essentially the same thing? And, I couldn't find one to rent. No one I knew really had one. All the reviews out for it were kind of in the middle, some glowing about some things, some just saying, it's just a nicer Glock. So I pulled the trigger, but then in my, like I said, my recent gat pondering phase, SHOT Show happened, and they announced that this full size was coming out, and it kind of got me wanting one. And then I was like, has this thing been around? And I guess it was an LE exclusive length. You could get slides for it, but they would be incomplete. So no wonder that was never really on my radar before. So I just decided to pull the trigger on one, and here it is. So going into what it comes with when you pick it up from your FFL or you get a cardboard box with everything in it. And then the firearm and the magazines will come in this little sleeve. Kind of an odd choice. I don't know how to feel about it. Most gun companies give you that giant plastic case that we all just kind of like throw in the garage and forget we own. So this is nice that it gives you a little sleeve to protect the finish when you go to and from the range and throw in a range bag. But I kind of would prefer maybe they just stuck with the cardboard box, because I kind of got my own pistol sleeves for that, but, you know, teach their own. Comes with your sleeve of various optic plates and whatnot, and then one's in the gun. But you get 2 magazines, which is, I would expect more. My F&S came with 3, so I was kind of expecting the same, but, you know, everyone does their own thing. And then on it is the medium back strap. It comes with a small flat back strap, and then I had purchased the large because I found it weird that it didn't come with the large. I wanted to try all the different sizes, being that I wear a size large glove. And it's kind of weird it didn't come with one. You know, the FNS never had a large back strap, so I wanted to try it out. Pretty normal packaging, let's say, or included things. I would have preferred more magazines, but wouldn't we all? So going into my starting impressions with this firearm, when I picked it up, you know, it was completely stock. Obviously, you see there's some Apex stuff on there, right? It does have a very Glocky feel, which isn't to say bad, right? It feels like a high-end-ish for a polymer gun. It feels good, right? It's not quite as positive locking up as the FNS, but it does have a more weighty, substantial feel to it than the FNS, which is a bit odd. So there's that. The other thing is the texture on this is awesome. I have no plans on getting this stippled or anything. I'm a little bit of a texture snob, and I think this is great. The only thing I would say is in the future, this more granular texture should kind of migrate up into here for that support hand. The pyramids are carried over from, let's see if we can get the close up here. You kind of see the pyramids on the FNS carried over to the 509. And then the FNS had the pyramids front and back strap. The 509's more of a, I guess you'd call it a macro pattern, more of like a square. So that was nice. You know, I wasn't really, people rave about the texture on these, and there's some guns out there people say have fantastic texture that I think just kind of suck, but you know, it is what it is. The look at first, this is totally stupid, but in pictures, I thought this gun kind of looked weird. Mostly like, it just looks like they used like the Photoshop stretch tool and grabbed a 509 and went like, but in person, it looks a lot better. You got this like, was it ball cut, and I don't know, to me, it kind of has a little bit of the high power vibe to it. And it uses the same recoil system as the normal 509, so you can do the Steven Seagal press check, which is stupid, but you can do it. And then I actually bought a trigger gauge since the last video I had, and the stock trigger, not the Apex, the stock trigger was, it felt fine to me, but it was from anywhere from 7 pounds to like, I'd say 5 3/4 when I would gauge it, and it would change every single trigger pull, right? And a lot of the general opinion of the 509 on the internet is just go ahead and throw the Apex kit on it. So I shot maybe, I don't know, 10, 20 rounds when I first picked it up just to make sure it worked. And it was like, yeah, you know, it's fine, serviceable, very, let's say Glock trigger. So went home and immediately bought the entire Apex catalog. So this has the Apex trigger, the durable striker with the little buffer in it, and extractor, put all that in. And now it's down to 5 pounds. So it's an unbroken in gun down 2 pounds with the Apex parts on it. I would suspect with a higher round count, it's going to drop down to 4, but obviously I'll let you know on that. And the main thing I would suggest, if you have a 509 and you're like, man, this trigger blows, but I don't want to spend a lot of money, is do the striker, because that got it from like 7 with a lot of variance and grittiness to it down to like a solid 6 pounds every single trigger pull, and it felt a lot better. Obviously, if you can spring the cash for it, get the trigger as well, but the main thing, at least with mine, was the striker. The other thing, so I put the 507 comp on here because the full size, for reasons. This would probably going to be my competition gun should I stick with the 509, but we'll see what happens. And a thumb screw X300. This seems to be a theme with every video I do. The quick detaches would not fit on the 509. Doing some reading online, I'll just grab one. I'll just grab my SIG here. I guess there's some kind of spacer in here that impedes on the trigger guard. So you have to either remove that, and I move my X300s from gun to gun, so I wasn't going to do that. The thumb screw is just a tight fit, but it clamps on just fine. So again, big W for thumb screw X300 gang. So after installing all those parts, I shot an additional about 200 rounds, zeroed the red dot, and just, you know, got a feel for the gun. The shooting of it is so far so good. It has the same recoil system as the normal 509, so you kind of get that, I guess, short stroke feel that you get from like PDPs, being that they all use the same recoil system as each other. But like running 124 grain HSTs felt really good. 124 grain, I think I shot AAC, felt really good. And I even ran a handful of that Jello Shots competition ammo through this. And that's crazy stuff. That's like shooting a 22. But the way it's sprung, it's definitely, you know, I hesitate to say oversprung because the dot would return very well to point of aim. It just maybe a little on the snappy side. I would argue though it's better, it's less snappy than a Glock, but more snappy than a P320, if that makes sense. And the main thing I noticed is the grip angle on the 509s is kind of in between that like harsh Glock grip angle where you almost feel like you're putting the gun down, and the 1911 P320 angle, where sometimes, this is a personal thing, sometimes when I present them, they're like almost pointed a little high, maybe from switching from Glocks and different stuff. That's kind of a me thing. But the 509 and the FNs in general point somewhere in the middle. So I found that very beneficial. Also running those 200 rounds, I initially had the large back strap on because it gave me like almost perfect trigger reach. And you can see with the medium, I'm kind of putting the knuckle on, or I guess the inner knuckle, I don't know what you call that part of the finger, is on the trigger, right? With the large, I was getting that nice center of the pad. The problem being is that beaver tail, and that's kind of the main reason to pick this, because it's the same thickness down here. You just add more space up in the beaver tail area, but it would create a seam right about here, and it would just tear, I wouldn't say tear up, but it was not comfortable on this inner portion of my thumb. Went back to the medium, and that's completely gone. So that's why I chose that. I'll take that joint trigger is kind of what I did on the FNS, so I'm kind of used to that. And most guns I end up doing that, so it didn't bother me too much. I was just hoping to get that perfect trigger placement. Another thing to add from the shooting impressions is the magazine release. It has this kind of like shielding to it, so dropping the mag, sometimes you could do it without breaking your grip, and it would drop free just fine. But the FNS has like no guard to it, and that to me was like, this was easy as all get out to freely drop mags, do a reload, whatnot. The 509, there's a little bit more, I guess you have to be more deliberate, let's say, to drop the mag. And then the slide release was a little stiff at first, but after, you know, X amount of mags, it turned to, it felt like just any other gun. One thing I wanted to add was for my first 200 rounds in here, I have a couple like go-to, I wouldn't say drills, but targets I shoot to kind of get the feel for a gun. I did a 5-yard dot torture, 25 yards freestyle, no time limit, and then a 10-10-10 drill. And when I go to a range, right, I do the 10-10-10 and the 25-yard freestyle. I do that once cold with the P320 because it's my main go-to, and then I'll do it at the end of the range trip again with the P320, and compare my scores. So on this trip, after just kind of putzing around with the 509 to get a feel for it, I also did the again, like I said, dot torture, 25-yard freestyle, and the 10-10-10. I'll roll in the pictures, and whether it just be, happenstance that particular day, I actually outperformed my go-to with the 509. So that's kind of a good sign. We'll see what happens in the future, but you can take a look at those targets. So going forward, my plans with this gun, well, as of right now, I'm not abandoning ship on the P320. My plan is to put more rounds through this, specifically about 1,000 rounds. The general consensus on the internet is about 1,000 rounds is where the 509 kind of goes to its final form, for lack of a better term. And then after that 1,000 rounds, I'm going to borrow a buddy's PDP and just compare all three of these, and whatever I shoot better, prefer, whichever I get the butterflies for, is I'll expand and get a Glock 19 size, keep this, and then get a competition rig for the foreseeable future. Hopefully if I can get as many years out of whatever I end up picking as I did out of the P10 series before they started breaking, I'll be more than happy. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and if you got any questions or comments, feel free to let me know, and I'll try and get back to you.